the distributive property and combining like terms. I'd like to first start out by defining the distributive property. The distributive property in mathematics is as follows. For any real numbers a, b, and c, we read this as a times the quantity b plus c is equal to ab plus ac. We can see how this works. We have a times this parentheses. What we want to think of is we want to take this a, multiply it by the first term to get your ab. Then we'll take the a, multiply it by the second term to get our ac. Therefore, a times b is ab, a times c is ac. Certainly we could think of it the other way around. This is just the same statement flipped. ab plus ac is equal to a times the quantity b plus c. What I'd like to do is do a few examples of this. So I'll rewrite the distributive property on the top. That's what we just learned. And let's do an example or two. Negative 3 times 5 plus 2. What I want to do is I want to use our distributive property right here. Notice my negative 3 in this problem takes place of our a, 5 is our b, and so on. According to the distributive property, I take my negative 3 times the 5 plus my negative 3 times the 2. And then we can simplify from there. Negative 3 times 5 is negative 15 plus negative 3 times 2, which is negative 6, which gets us negative 21. Okay, let's try another example. 7 times 2 plus 7 times 4. Now notice, this time my problem is set up similar to this portion of the distributive property. Let's see if we can figure out what our a is in this case. My distributive property says that if ab plus ac, then I have a times b plus c. Notice my 7 would be my a in this problem. So according to the distributive property, I can write my 7 and then times the quantity 2 plus 4. Now we could simplify if we want. 2 plus 4, which is 6, times 7 is 42. Okay. Now, let's try an example that does not include all numbers. Let's do an example maybe if we have a variable in the problem. Okay, so I've got 5 times the quantity x minus 2. I'm going to use the distributive property to simplify. Distributive property says I take the 5, I multiply it by the first term. Then I take the 5 and I multiply it by the second term. 5 times x is 5x. 5 times negative 2 is a negative 10. Now notice, I cannot simplify this any further because these are not alike. I have x's here, I don't have x's there, so that's as far as I can go. Let's do another example. 5y plus 8y. Okay, let's simplify this term. 5y plus 8y. Here's a word we need to learn. Coefficient. What a coefficient is, given a variable, if I have a number in front of the variable, that is known as my coefficient. So the coefficient of this piece is 5. The coefficient of this piece is 8. The way we add terms that are alike, these would be known as like terms. I add the coefficients together. I have 5y's plus 8y's is 13y's. Now, let's see if we could do the same problem but use the distributive property. Okay? Notice, I have a y in common on each of these. So if you look back on the distributive property, the definition, it says that I can take that y out, and I'm left with a 5 plus 8. So there's the distributive property. That's the second portion of our distributive property. Now if I want, I could simplify the parentheses, and I can multiply. And obviously, those are the same. Okay, let's try one more example. Negative 2 times y plus 2 minus 3 times 3 minus y plus 4 times x plus 1. Okay. Notice I have 3 multiplications here. I have 3 distributive properties to work through. So let's go ahead and distribute the negative 2 through this parenthesis. I'll distribute the negative 3 through this parenthesis. And so on. And I'll distribute the 4. 4 times 1 is 4. Now I will start to simplify. Negative 2y, this would be minus 4, minus 9. Negative times negative, that's a plus. Okay, so I've distributed all my numbers through the parentheses. Now the goal is to add the like terms together. Let's see. Here are some y's there. Here are some y's there, so I can combine those by adding the coefficients together. Negative 2 and a positive 3 gives me 1y. Now I can write the 1, or I do not have to write it. I'm going to choose not to write the 1. Let's see, I have 4 x's. There are no other x's, so that's going to have to stay. I can't combine that with anything else. And now I'll add the numbers together. Well, negative 4 and a positive 4, that's 0. And a negative 9 gives me negative 9. And that's as far as I can go. There are no other like terms, so I have to stop there.